Chapter 20. Gary could hear the shouts across the estate. He wondered whether Augustine and Ash were safe, but there was little he could do. The pain in his leg needed treatment, as it had gone from aching to biting. He'd called an ambulance and was sat in the passenger seat of Iain Mallen's car. Mallen was sat in the driver's seat, explaining what had been found. The initial tests had come back with DNA from 3 people: the owner of the car, their wife, and Marcus Bright. "But that means that Marcus Bright stole the car," Gary said out loud, letting the thoughts inside his head wander. "There's no evidence that anyone who shouldn't have been in the car was actually in the car, apart from Marcus Bright," Iain Mallen explained, in a way that only he could. "But that can't be true. I saw someone put Marcus Bright in the passenger seat and then drive away. I've seen it with my own eyes," Gary mused. "And did you see this in the flesh?" Mallen asked. "No, CCTV," Gary replied. "Ah, then you haven't seen it with your own eyes. The things they can do with technology now means that they could put a dinosaur in the passenger seat of the car and you wouldn't question the authenticity. Their work is that good. But this is CCTV system at a hospital. I saw the footage no more than half an hour after it happened in real life. I don't understand what could have happened." "Well, forensics are telling you that there is only one piece of rogue DNA here, and the work we do is scientific. The DNA doesn't lie in the same way your suspects do. It's one of the reasons I like doing this job instead of yours. I don't get lied to. I don't have to decide if I'm being told the truth or not. I know from the words on the page in front of me what's truthful and what's not. And here we are. This is the truth." Gary scratched his head as he heard 2 noises. The first was the sound of footsteps that accompanied the sight of Augustine and Ash around the corner. The shouts that had followed them through the neighbourhood had stopped. The second sound was the sirens of the ambulance, accompanied by the flashing blue lights. Gary was on his way to hospital to get his leg seen to. As soon as he saw the ambulance, the pain increased. Something to do with the association of seeing the flashing blue lights, he told himself. "How are we doing, Gary?" Ash asked as he came into sight of his colleague. "Tell me you got him," Gary asked. "Does it look like we have him?" Ash replied, looking at the floor around where he stood. "All right, smart-ass. Tell me you got something." Gary modified his question, not that it changed the answer. "Nothing. You?" Ash replied, nodding towards Iain Mallen. "The only DNA in here that shouldn't be belongs to Marcus Bright?" Augustine asked. "Correct. So we're no further forward than when we got here, are we?" Gary inquired. "Maybe, maybe not. I think we've got some degree of certainty that the person who ran away from us lives on this estate, probably in this address here. Shall we check this out while you get checked out, Gary?" Augustine asked, seeing the ambulance crew making their way towards the car. Gary and the ambulance crew got down to their business. Augustine and Ash knocked again on the door of the property that had first attracted their attention. They got the reply they expected: absolute silence. It didn't take long for Ash's boot to work its way through the door, loosening the lock from the frame as he did so, and the 2 men were inside. The smell was damp mixed with chip pan fat. Not the most pleasant of welcomes, but both men had smelled far worse at the scene of a crime. A quick inspection of the downstairs revealed nothing of note except from the smell. It didn't look like the place was occupied. None of the usual signs that a property was in use, like food in the fridge or a warmth that was brought about by human occupation. Upstairs brought more of the same, only the upstairs had a very different smell, the sulphur of fireworks. But there was still the same background smell of damp. Answering his phone, Augustine received the news he expected from Alice. She'd been asked to look up the residents of the address. There were none. But she had the name of the landlord. Augustine would give him a call to answer a few basic questions, like how long it had been vacant, who might have a key, and what security measures he had in place. but he didn't expect a great deal of joy in that line of the investigation. The two men left the property just as the locksmith turned up to secure the place. The police would foot the bill for that one. Augustine would speak to Marie, his boss, to clear it all up and get her to authorize paying for the damage. A couple of £100 at the most, if only it was that easy to find a killer, Augustine thought. "I'd pay £200 from my own pocket to find Marcus Bright," he said to Ash, wondering why his face was one of confusion. Then he realized that Ash wasn't part of his internal monologue. "Well, you paid more than me, Gus. Bigger house, bigger car, bigger paycheck, and bigger mortgage." "What did you say at the end?" "Bigger mortgage." "Ash, I think we need to speak to Marcus Bright's employers."